Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Daisy. Today I'll be reading my subscribers' scary stories. So if you are interested, grab your snacks, grab your cobija, and let's get straight into it. Hello Daisy. I want to share a paranormal experience I had when I was in the Navy stationed in Lemoore, California. My first home was a 2-story, 3-bedroom duplex. All the bedrooms were located on the 2nd floor. I was living there with my daughter who was only 2 months old when this incident occurred. It was late one night in August 2009. I was sleeping on my king-size bed with my 2-month-old daughter quietly laying next to me. I began to gradually awaken out of my sleep but quickly realized I was unable to move my body or speak. I was in a paralyzed state. I began to hear what sounded like angry growling coming from downstairs, and it was accompanied with loud stomping sounds coming up the stairs. It sounded like a huge angry beast, and I listened as it angrily barged into my room through the door. It approached the edge of my bed and abruptly pounced on me and began to strangle me. I couldn't move to fight this thing off of me, and I was unable to breathe. I couldn't open my eyes to see what this thing looked like, so I can't provide a physical description. However, I could hear it growling and I could feel its large hands tightening its grip around my neck. I did the only thing I could think to do, and that was to pray. In my mind, I began to panically say, "Lord, Jesus, please help me. Please help me." I kept trying to rebuke this thing off of me, but to no avail. I felt like my life was draining from me and slowly slipping away. That's when I calmly told God, "Lord, I'm dying and there's nothing more I can do. I will see you soon." Right after I said that in my head, this demonic entity abruptly jumped off of me, but it didn't leave the room. I could feel it standing next to my bed on the side where my daughter was still quietly asleep. I was so weakened and couldn't move in time to wrap my arm around her. To my horror, this evil being angrily grabbed my daughter, lifted her up, and slammed her to the floor before barging out of my room. I was so upset because there was nothing I could do to get revenge. I was so angry, shocked, and confused at what just happened. My poor baby was on the floor crying, and after gathering up enough strength, I got out of bed and turned on the light. I picked her up, held her close, and began to silently weep. That was probably the first time I felt helpless as a new parent. I checked her for any marks or visible injuries, and she didn't have any. That was the first time I came close to death by an unseen entity. I don't know why that happened, but I thank God that my life was not taken that night and that my daughter wasn't seriously injured. Hola Daisy, I am sorry if this is long, pero I wanted to be as detailed as possible for the best experience. I'm writing to you today to tell you about my little brother and what happened when we cleaned the attic. To give you some context, my brother was 9 years old and I was 15. All our family is very Catholic and we all have a don, a gift. My father was born with la cruz de pelo on his chest, which protects him from any evil trying to harm him. It also allows him to be somewhat of a curandero. My mother can help the dead when they appear in her dreams asking for help, and my brother sees out of the ordinary things, and I can see, hear, and protect from evil. Well, every summer, my family picks a day to clean the whole house. My mom had told us to be up by 7 in the morning to be ready by 8. Mi hermanito, my brother, and I did not want to spend the whole day cleaning, so we were throwing a fit. But then my mom said, "Mira, si se arreglan ahorita, nos vamos al attic primero." My brother and I have never been to the attic of our house because it was too dangerous for us. But now my mom told us we were both old enough to help out. So as we were so excited, we ran to get ready. But little did we know what we were getting ourselves into. So after an hour of cleaning the attic, my brother and I noticed a fist-sized hole in the wall. So of course, us being curiosos, we walked over to it. To our surprise, we saw a baby crib. My brother immediately called my dad and said, "Papi, mira una camita." His eyes lit up and his mood changed as if something had put a spell on him. My dad quickly came over and tore down the wall. He grabbed the crib and took it to the back to throw it away, but my little brother jumped at the opportunity and said, "Can I play with it before you throw it away?" My father quickly said, "Es de niña, no." My mother overheard the conversation and said, "Mi amor, es solo una cuna, déjalo." So my dad gave in and put it down in the backyard. Throughout the day, we cleaned, and by the time we finished, it was 8 p.m. The sun was gone, and so was my little brother. The whole day, I had not seen him since 11:30 in the morning. My parents and I looked for him, and to our surprise, he was still in the backyard playing with his toys in the crib. My dad went to go get him, but he screamed, "No, apa, otro ratito." So he let him play 10 more minutes. My dad felt something was off, so he threw the crib away after my brother had gone in. Well, a week went by and things were normal, but since my brother and I were close, I noticed he got paler during the week and he developed ojeras, deep dark ones. He wasn't looking like himself anymore, and my mom and dad noticed it too. So my mom told my dad to give my brother a sobada con un huevo, yet every time my dad tried to rub the egg on him, it would slip out of his hand as if someone pulled it from him, or it would crack open like someone had pierced it. We found that so weird, so we stopped trying. As the months went by, my brother got quieter. He stopped coming around us and would even lock himself in his room. That was not like him at all. On a Tuesday afternoon, my mom was cooking and I was with her in the kitchen watching a movie on my laptop. My brother came in, walked behind my mother, and said in a little girl's voice, "Mommy, you wanna play?" Both my mom and I turned around to see who said that because we knew that wasn't my brother's voice. My mom turned white and looked over at me and said, "Go play with your brother." While I was playing with him, my mom called my dad and said, "Amor, come home now." My mom said to me and my dad, "Tengo miedo, ese no es mi bebecito," and we all knew we needed to talk to El Padre. That weekend, we decided to go to church. But when we were walking in, my brother would not cross through the doors. He said, "It's hot in there." But the AC in the church made it super cold, so I was confused. I assumed he was just tired and didn't want to walk, so I decided to baby him and carry him in. Pero to my surprise, girl, he started kicking and crying that he was burning and that he was in pain. I didn't know what to do, so I walked back outside and he calmed down. El Padre saw what happened, and after Mass, he actually came up to my parents before they got the chance to, and all he said was, "I'll help you." So that night, my dad took me to my grandmother's house because El Padre said that the bond I have with my brother is too strong. So if I stayed, that would allow whatever is in my brother to enter me. So what I'm about to tell you is what my mother told me happened while El Padre was at the house. They sat my brother on a chair while my father held him. El Padre had decided to perform an exorcism on my baby brother. My mom spared me the details, but said it was the scariest thing to see her baby shake, as if he were having a seizure, and to hear him speak as a grown man when he is only 9 years old. After it was over, El Padre bendició la casa and left. My father picked me up the next day and told me it was over. But little did we know we had just awoken whatever was in the house. The next 2 years of our life became hell. Love, JASYLN. Hi Daisy, I'm Joss. I've had a couple of encounters with the paranormal, but today I've decided to write a story of the one that freaks me out the most. A couple years ago, my family and I decided that it would be time to take a trip to Mexico to take advantage that my sister and I had no school. We would stay at our own house, but we would visit my aunt frequently to give her a hand with her business. A couple days before leaving, we planned a family gathering. So everyone got together, pitched in, and ate some delicious tamales. Later on, around 7, my aunt had told us about a mansion she had to keep an eye on for a family member of her husband who lived in the United States. She had told us that this mansion was haunted. She'd see things being thrown across the room and encounter more of the activity in the main living room. The mansion was never occupied. The owners would always stay at a different place when they'd visit. But after what happened this one particular night, I understand why. Our family, being very curious and chismosos, were all brave enough to decide to go visit the mansion together. Immediately getting there, I realized that the mansion was located right in front of El Pueblo's graveyard. Entering the house, it felt cold, colder than usual. I remember feeling my body and head heavy. Walking through the house, I tried to stick by my dad while my mom and aunts walked around looking at the lavish house decor. My cousins were running around playing hide and seek without a care in the world. My dad stayed with my uncles, talking in the kitchen, and me right beside him. I sat on a chair by the dinner table, listening to the conversation de mis tíos, of my uncles, when I felt a tap on my shoulder. I didn't turn back to see, but I knew for sure someone was not behind me, or at least not someone with flesh and bones. My dad looked at me and his eyes quickly narrowed above my head. He had a puzzled look and said, "Quédate aquí junto a mí, no toques nada." So I did what I was told. He kept glancing behind the chair, but I brushed it off. Some time had passed and we all forgot about it. I sat on the chair again, but it felt uncomfortable, so I stood right behind it. Then I felt a tap again. I looked over my shoulder and I saw a cloudy, transparent shadow a little taller than me. It was a young boy. He was handsome, but his head was deformed. It was looking straight at me, moving his mouth as if he wanted to speak, but he couldn't. Then his face scrunched up as if he wanted to cry. I looked around to see if anyone else was looking, pero todos estaban platicando. I was out of words. My heart felt heavy. I felt bad that I couldn't help him. His eyes called out for help. I walked away slowly. I tried not to look, hoping he would vanish. My dad and his sister decided to sit while they waited for everyone else to get ready to leave. And as soon as my dad touched the chair, the same one where I had seen the boy, it moved back with a strong force as if the boy didn't want my dad sitting in it. Everyone looked back to see what was going on since the noise of the chair moving across the tile floor was loud. Everyone was quiet and didn't say a word. I didn't see the guy anymore, but my dad and his sister had later on told me that they had seen the same boy I described to them. I'm not sure who the boy was, but I felt horrible for not being able to help him. It was clear that he was not resting in peace. To this day, we still remember the boy and continue to pray for him. Hi Daisy. As I was watching your subscribers' scary stories, it reminded me of something that happened earlier this year. In June, my grandmother had passed away, and me and my family had to travel back to Oklahoma for the funeral. We got there pretty late, and as we were driving through this little town to get to her house, we turned down this road. We saw an owl walking, not flying, towards the car. My mom screamed and thought she hit it, but there was no thump or any indication that we hit it. We all got creeped out because in my culture, I'm Native American and Hispanic, owls represent something evil or bad. Anyways, we got to her house and went to sleep. I didn't think much of it, so I just brushed it off. Well, the next day, my family came over to eat. We ate and we just started to relax. My tia came into the house frantically gathering all the kids saying, "We need to pray, we need to pray." Confused and creeped out, I started praying with everyone. After we finished praying, we went outside and asked my uncle what happened. He said while they were outside talking, an owl swooped into a tree and started screeching. Me, my cousins looked at each other and we froze. That's when my uncle proceeded to tell us a story that happened to a family friend of ours, and it went like this. Around 20 years ago, my family was friends with a person who caught and released owls. But one day he had caught two. He went off to bed, and when he woke up, he noticed that the owls had beaded earrings on. He quickly ran out to his car and drove to my grandma's house to ask her if it meant anything, since the earrings were in a native pattern, so he assumed that she would know, but my grandma didn't know. He returned to his house, but the owls were gone. But the cages were still closed. They just vanished. KAIA. Hi Daisy, my name is Josie. Today I'm going to tell you a story that my dad told my sister and I the other night. So my dad is from a small town in Veracruz. He had an uncle, we'll call him Jose. Jose one night was walking late at night from work. He was really tired from working in El Campo. He worked at a field of I don't know what, but he always carried a machete along with a small backpack where he carried his lunch. Jose was walking one night in the pitch black, taking the path he always takes. He had this thing where he never looked back into the darkness out of fear of seeing something. Well, there was a shortcut path that he would take to get home. It's a trail that goes behind a cemetery. As he was walking, he encountered an animal, but he couldn't see what type of animal it was because it was really dark. But he said he could definitely see something, just not put the figure together. He tried to jump over it, but the animal wouldn't let him. It hissed at him and growled. Jose got his machete and sliced the animal's arm off and went home. The next morning, his wife, my dad's uncle's wife, wakes up to tell him that the lady who lives down the street, we'll call her Teresa, had an accident. My aunt said that the lady had her arm chopped off last night by some viejo loco. My uncle then told her what happened to him last night, and they both connected the dots to figure out that that lady is in fact a witch and was trying to hurt him. My aunt and uncle still to this day live in that same town, but after what happened to Teresa, she was never seen again. She vanished with no trace. Con mucho amor, Josie. Hi Daisy, this story is from my uncle. My dad and uncle are my grandparents' only children, and at that time, my dad was out of the city to study. As a child, my uncle used to live in a joint family, meaning his cousins, uncles, aunts, grandparents, etc. lived together. And of course, like any child, he loved to play with his cousins. But there was a rule in the house, which was that no children were allowed outside in the garden after sunset. Well, one night, when everyone went off to bed, my uncle couldn't seem to fall asleep. He kept hearing light tappings on his window, but kept ignoring it. After 30 minutes, he finally got up and went to go check. It was my dad tapping the window. My uncle got so excited seeing him and quickly unlocked it. My dad told him to come outside with him, to which my uncle refused, explaining the rule. My dad kept insisting to him to come out, and each time my uncle refused, he got more angry. After a while, my uncle got scared that my dad might hit him, so he just closed the window. The only problem was that my dad's fingers were in between the latch. My dad insisted my uncle come outside again, and my uncle finally agreed. He climbed out the window and followed my dad down the roof. Only when they reached the garden, my uncle asked what my dad was doing back home. These are the words my uncle said. "Mario, what are you doing home?" And my dad stopped walking. After a few minutes, the entity pretending to be my dad looked back at my uncle with the most horrifying smile on his face, and soon after, it showed its true form. My dad's face formed into an old man with beady black eyes and wrinkles all over his face. His height had started to increase, and then it said, "I'm not Mario." My uncle stood there petrified and started praying so loud that he woke up my half-deaf grandfather. By the time they all came out, the entity had disappeared, and they found my uncle, who had fainted, in the middle of the garden. To this day, my uncle still sees the man sometimes when he looks in the mirror. So that was it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you to everyone that wrote in their stories and that continue to write in their stories. Thank you guys so much. If you have a scary story that you would like for me to feature, please send it in at daicyspooks@gmail.com. I hope to read your guys' stories very soon. But other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys all. Hope to see you guys all in my next one. Bye.